Yeah.
Couple of
All
things.
right. You want to get the results of the poll?
Yeah. Shall we?
All right. Yeah, of course. We asked this morning, do you believe school pupils are more violent today? And 27 people weighed in on the poll. 21 said yes, and 6 said no. 21 said yes, we are more students are more violent, and 6 said no. All right, that's the results of our poll today.
Trin City also had a power dip. Wow.
I think they're more violent, quite frankly.
I think so too.
I think they're way more
What the hell the
violent.
two Hillview boys knew about fighting?
Well,
What's that, Alien?
I say, what the hell the two Hillview boys know about fighting?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. But what do you guys think? Do you think that we are more students are more violent? Because I want to believe
society is more violent.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, I think
Everybody
so.
is more
The
violent.
society is more violent. So why wouldn't students be more violent?
True. I think
Society is way more violent than 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Way more violent.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't there be a display of more violence in that demographic also?
Yeah.
Logically.
I believe so also.
So
And
you
of course,
kind of
it's
the
still
kind of
social media.
murder rate you see now compared to 20 years ago, the kind of violent crimes you see, you seem to need more and more laws. The kind of white collar crime, the society is much more violent. The society is exposed to more violence. Those children playing on video games and shooting people the whole day.
Yeah.
They have pent up energy in them. They have dysfunctional home situations. They have absent parents. They're going to be more violent. They're going to have more violent displays generally. So they are more violent.
Yeah.
And there was a power dip here also. I don't know.
Yeah.
If that's an indication of another island wide, we'll see.
Okay. Well, I
Well,
need
you
to
got it
I
where
need
you are.
to go and
Richard,
check a
did you
couple of
get it?
things as we had that. I'll be back in a
Richard is on the road still, probably.
Yeah.
I had no dip where I am.
You on the road?
dipping
Where you
right
got
now?
dip?
You're dipping right now? Is he yawning?
He laughed or scoffed.
Anyway, Pakistan, West Indies, just as an update, West Indies batting 20 for 1 after 3.5 overs. 20 for 1. 1 point, what am I saying? Yes, 3.5 overs. So after 4 overs, West Indies 20 for 1. All right? West Indies versus Pakistan. All right? So just as an update, if you want, you can take a look like I do sometimes. But let me try to find my YouTube channel so I could
What?
But for our listeners,
right.
we are now live on YouTube, so you can check us out on YouTube at this point. And of course, you can like our page and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get alerts when we're on YouTube. So if you want to switch over to see our faces, you can, except mine.
I don't know what Steve has planned for us this hour.
Yeah.
He's not informed us in any way, form, or fashion.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I know some people are alluding to the violence as blaming this on the lockdown from COVID. I don't buy that. I really don't buy that. I just think
So then all children should be fighting then.
Exactly. You know,
Yeah,
I don't think that's what it is. I don't think.
I think there are several issues that are contributing to those particular fights. Yeah. It's not one issue.
Yeah.
It's several issues, including in some cases unchecked bullying. Mm-hmm. The guidance counselors in school need to be more assertive. We need to be more proactive in schools to find out what's going on with many of these students at the home level. You know, we always feel that every home situation is an equal and standardized training environment, and it's not. Different homes have different benchmarks of what they feel they're teaching their children or not teaching their children. In some cases, the parents are so busy, or there's a single parent situation. And some single parent situations are fine, don't get me wrong. Not all single parent situations are dire, but there are,
bad.
there are
Correct.
situations where one parent is struggling. There's some situations where there are two parents and there's no supervision. You understand? And the situation with the two parents is so rancorous. It's so contentious that it's spilling off into the children and how they're behaving. You understand? Because the children are seeing violence in the home and a poor socialization pattern from the parents. So when they go out in schools, they're acting out. You understand? Some children are being abused at the home and they're acting out in schools. So there's some children are being abused in the neighborhoods. There's a series of issues. It's not just one issue that's contributing to this.
Has the Ministry of Education made any statement? I know they had said the day before that school fights were down to 0. And then bam, bam, that this one cropped up.
Well,
So
they have
I
said, hold on, let me
don't
see.
know if they've said anything.
Let me see if they've said something. Not well. According to the ministry, Chief Education Officer Dr. Peter Smith has reissued guidelines outlined in the Education Act and the National School Code of Conduct to principals, which summarize the current measures to deal with incidents of violent behavior in schools. The communique to principals noted that pupils who commit serious offenses while in uniform, whether on or off the school's compound, face the maximum penalty of expulsion from the school. This applies to students engaged in fights that result in serious injury to others or the wielding of dangerous weapons. Principals were also reminded that all incidents of this nature are to be reported immediately to the nearest police station and the executive of the ministry. It should be noted that the TTPS has advised that they will lay appropriate charges in all such circumstances. And the ministry said these measures were especially necessary in the context of continuing indiscipline among the school population, most recently the violent assault in Williamsville. So they have issued a release. They said in a recent press conference, the Ministry of Education noted the need for a revised approach to dealing with school violence that allowed for both punitive and supportive measures. So they have said something since. They have said, and the International Women's Resource Network urged the Ministry of Education to increase the number of social workers and guidance officers within the schools. The IWRN is expressing deep concern over the levels of school violence that have been occurring throughout the school community over the past 3 months. So they have also said something.
There have been calls for the last couple of years for the Education Ministry to increase resources to the Student Support Services Division for this very reason. Right? I liaise with persons inside the division on a regular basis, and they speak about the strain they're under because of their wide mandate of remediating behavioral emotional problems with school children in the country. It's just not enough resources, and as I said before, there's so much happening in so many homes that we don't know about. It's contributing to these students' behaviors and underperformance, and it's just not enough. And yes, you have limited resources, but at the end of the day, that's part of the mandate. I also think the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services needs to play a more proactive role in going to these homes and finding out what is going on in the home. Because that behavior of that child didn't originate necessarily in the school. Or the response to some sort of trigger in the school in some instances. But very often the students are responding to something that's going unchecked in the school.
True.
Somebody threatening them, somebody bullying them, they're reporting it, getting no response. So they unfortunately take matters into their own hands and respond in a way that ends up on the front page of the papers.
They react. That's human nature though, eh? Human nature is that you could take and take and take until you can't take anymore. And you react in different, all manner of ways. You react. You know what I mean? Some not so nice. You know? Well, most of it not so nice at the end of the day. You know, so it's just I just sometimes I just have to put it down to human behavior, you know, and you know, I pray that it will change, you know, because Lord knows I have had my own personal issues I've had to deal with, you know what I mean? And I don't think anybody is devoid of having to deal with any personal issues concerning any manner of stress, you know, any manner of distress, any manner of how I should put it. Any manner of situation in your life. There's so many different
It is clear that the country needs to take a different approach to dealing with situations in so many homes that are dysfunctional. It is clear that we're not being proactive enough as a country in finding out what is happening in so many homes that is leading to, one, adult negative interactions, domestic violence and abuse situations, and two, children coming out with poor social skills. It is clear that we're waiting for it to happen to fix it after it happened.
Yeah.
When the indicators and the red flags are there, and in some instances it's economic issues, in some instances it's psychosocial issues, in some issues it's poor training or lack of training. But we have to be more proactive and go and do social scans in the country to find there are indicators that we could identify, you know.
Yeah.
That make people predisposed to this sort of antisocial behavior in many circumstances, but we're not being proactive, waiting till it happen and complain about it, and then try to fix it after the fact.
Because it's always them people children.
Yeah, you're right. It's always them people children.
Yeah, that's how how it is.
So that's them fault.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
it's them fault. It's them people and them.
Mm-hmm.
Civil children, as they call it.
That's why I said I do not send school fights to me, and don't expect me to share it. You understand? I will not participate in the further stress that children are going through by sharing their images of them fighting and so.
I guess we can open the phones because there's some issue with Afro, who was our booked guest this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, not
So
good.
let's
We have lots of calls coming through, though, so that's a good thing. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, it's me again, Salim.
Hey,
Yeah, as far as the violence in school, that's a given because, as the senator said, violence is up around the world in all categories. So that's a given. I'm anxiously awaiting to see the results of that poll. And one more quick thing, Steve. Yeah, Wendell.
Yeah.
Pakistan versus the West Indies. Are you looking at the one-day ODI?
Yes, I am looking at it right now.
Okay, 25-1. 25 for 1. Okay, I was
25 for 1. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right, man. Take care.
As usual. Take care.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you so much. 222-TALK, 612-TALK, toll-free North Americans. Yep, our toll-free line is up and running, 866-525-1099. Good morning.
Hey, morning everybody. Morning, Wendell.
Morning, Mr.
Patrick.
Or Richard, Steve Khan.
Morning, Mr. Patrick.
Morning. Observation.
Morning, Mr. Patrick.
Yes, Basu. Mr. Ragoobarsingh. Morning, my lord. Observation for the longest while. Why it is only one class and one category of people behaving that way, boy?
Mr. Patrick,
That is not true.
Mr. Patrick, I'm not even entertaining that nonsense. No, Mr. Patrick, I am not.
Wendell, let him finish his contribution.
Nonsense.
No, I know I'm going with this.
Let him finish his contribution.
Wendell, hang on. Go ahead,
That is
Mr.
the
Patrick.
same reason why.
Let him finish his contribution,
I
please.
just said that. Them churn and them. Stop it. Don't do it, Mr. Patrick. Don't
Right,
don't add to the nonsense people talking.
Listen. Recently, I just interact with school supervisors, I just interact with social workers, politicians, and guidance officers. And it's amazing to know that it's one social worker and one school guidance in a whole district. You understand? And some of these people overwhelmed with the workload they have. Some of them leave the job. A lot of them leave the job. And will we interact with discussion? I mean, Hillview College, QRC, Fatima, President College, Bishops, and these places, you won't find that kind of behavior, so. Or if you find that behavior, then they deal with it because of the board. But in certain government schools, in certain districts now, you're seeing a certain category of children with that kind of behavior, and they wonder if it's how we socialize with home or with that cultural behavior. That's what I'm asking, because we don't hide we head. We don't hide we head in the sun. Right? Because in the end of the day, I live with a lot of East Indian people. Me are no Chinese friend, me are no Syrian friend, but I know some schools, some of them Chinese children, I never hear about that. I hear about children who of a high class echelon. That was to move them from school and that was go to pay school. But let me face the fact. Let me face the reality in Trinidad and Tobago. Like we have failed to deal with the system and the reality. I'm not saying there's only black people children of cancer.
So what are you saying?
I'm not saying that.
But you started your statement by saying it's only certain category. What do you mean by that?
All right, certain categories. All right, look for instance, right? In certain areas in the society have certain cultures, certain behavioral pattern. I mean, you do sociology, right? And within them homes and them, it has something called, some families have what they call the extended family. So if the father not around or the mother not around, the grandparents or the uncle or the aunt just take over that. You know? But within certain families, we don't have that by. Is the mother alone fighting up with children? Or the father alone fighting up with the children? And they don't have the extended family.
Mr. Patrick, can I interject now?
Yes.
There are two major ethnic groups in this country.
Correct is right.
East Indian Trinidadians, descendant Trinidadians, and Afro-descendant Trinidadians, right?
Correct.
Both of whom form approximately 30 to 33% of the population each. Correct?
Correct.
Any behavioral manifestations in those two groups will seem to be more than the other groups just by mere dint of their numbers. Are we understanding that?
Yes, we understand that.
So the manifestation of the behaviors may seem to come from a particular group or two, but it's just because of the composition of the society.
Right, so why we don't highlight that too?
So the suggestion that it's coming from a particular demographic is not the full context of that conversation. And yes, there are issues in all demographic groups of different types.
All. You go in the courthouse and the seat and all of them have it. All of them are children. All of them are faraway mining children, East Indian African. All of them are abused, both across the board. But for some reason or what, you're only highlighting one kind of people?
I don't know that they're only highlighting one kind of people. I don't know that's true.
A lot of people making that statement because I wasn't seeing.
What is a lot of people?
What you're seeing?
Mr. Patrick, I don't know if you are aware. Mr. Patrick, I don't know if you are aware. You just highlighted a certain group of people. You, and you're accusing other people of doing it. That's what you just did. That's what you just did. Who shooting down children across the United States in schools? Who doing it? Who doing it in China? Who doing it in China? Who doing it in Africa? Who doing it in India? What rubbish you're talking? I don't want to hear your rubbish. You're talking rubbish. I don't want to hear your rubbish.
You're running when the man telling you it's illegal to be at the bus, you're running. You're running all the time. Let me deal with the reality.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. We have other calls standing by.
Thanks,
right.
Mr. Patrick. Good morning.
You perpetuate your nonsense when you start, and when you realize the road you're going down, you're trying to backtrack. You highlighting it.
Good morning.
Hi, Paul. Well, all you're going to get vexed with me too and say the same culture and the same mindset I have. Paul, I beg to differ with you and my partner who are in the same red with me. The reality is, look at society now, Paul. Yes, I'm not saying it don't have, but one is clearly more prevalent than the other. I don't
And I could presume to erroneously subscribe all kinds of maladies to all kinds of ethnic groups, but that is the genesis of what is called discrimination and ethnic stereotyping.
Well, but
And
that
I don't know that you have the data to support that suggestion.
But look at the prisons. I go in this morning. I being honest. I go in this morning,
And the prisons are much more. The prison situation is much more complex, and as a result of
Why is
the
it more complex,
of
Paul?
different structural inequities in society that are historical.
Paul, straight up, you could use all the fancy terminology.
Yeah, yeah. But when all else fails, I feel.
No, but Paul, the reality is the extended family. Paul, look at how many single parents it have of one particular race. Look how much, Paul. And straight up, as I said, me putting what in my mouth to say, because deep down inside, my family is split with both ways. However, I will say very affirmatively, the African race, Paul, right now, is the one that seems to be the one giving problems right now. I don't care who want to fancy quote it, who don't want to believe that. The reality is that is the truth. When you look at plenty of the crimes, you're insane. Paul, you're not seeing as much. Nobody say don't have the other races committing crimes. But let us not fool ourselves. Let us not pretend. I don't care who wants to get vexed and do admit it. I admit it. And I say honestly, I find right now it is very disturbing that all that being highlighted right now is one said race.
I'm glad you made that statement. What's being highlighted? Because there are crimes happening across the board
Yes,
that are being
but it's kind
highlighted.
of
So let me
wild,
do it like that.
wildcat and thing in school. In your days it had that? No. In my days it didn't have that. And this morning I revealed the age.
Let me just say that
and more I'm a decade and more under you, and I'm telling you, we never had that behavior at my
superficial analysis of the situation is counterproductive. That's all I will say. Because I can't argue with I feel and I feel. I can't argue with that.
But
I can't discuss I feel because you could feel, I could feel, Steve could feel, Wendell could feel, Richard could feel. I can't. If you bring evidence and we do a proper survey and a proper
well, your partner working right there. Your partner working right there. Sure, he have the stuff.
Somebody saying I feel and I feel. I can't contribute to that.
Well, I'm not saying I feel. I watching and reading what the same media which you represent putting out there. The and
I guess it's convenient to put out a particular section of what's happening as a whole, and cherry picking what people want to what they want to publish, as opposed to looking at the whole demographic or the whole sphere or continuum of criminal activity or antisocial activity in the country in all kinds of dimensions, as opposed to looking at one. Let me tell you something. Let me give you an example. A television camera literally takes a snapshot of one area and you see all of the other side. You don't see what happening, because we choose to focus on one part conveniently. That's all I will say.
All right. Thanks, Mrs. R.
All right.
Or Mrs. King.
Yes, Steve. Mrs. R.
And Mrs. R.
Yes, honey.
Let me tell you what I appreciate. That we can have a disagreement and still be civil to each other.
But of course, Paul, I am of a
and other people need to understand that we don't need to agree, but we could have a conversation and disagree and be civil. And I think that must be appreciated.
But of course, Paul, this is how mature people behave. I have no problem. All right, Mrs. R here. Bye, Steve.
Bye, dear. Good morning. Hello. Good morning.
Yeah, hi, program. I just had to jump in there because talking about that, Professor Gerard Hutchinson in his professorial lecture did talk about that, and maybe y'all could interview him or call him, where he highlighted the fact that the two major ethnic groups do exhibit pain, one internalized to the sense of cuttings, and the other one is a very external thing where they extend their pain outwardly, and it is an interesting thing, But what the lynching is that there's both pain, and pain exists, and how we internalize. So cutting to the point of almost a week and an arm and thing, and it goes to abuse, and within internally, and then the other one is externally within the community and whatnot. And that comes to the other kind of how you resolve pain. But all groups exist pain, and I don't know. People must understand that, and other people deal with it different. Talk to the professional psychiatrists, counselors who could afford $700 an hour, the $800 an hour, and sometimes $500 an hour. And when you talk to them, they will tell you the type of clientele that they have. I've been part of counseling for 10 years, and I have seen all the groups that are in pain. They come from working class, middle class, and upper class. So pain is the main thing. How we deal with the pain is the other issue.
And if I could just interject also, people need to realize that this country has a tendency to ascribe particular maladies to particular ethnic groupings because it's convenient in the absence of empirical evidence. And because of what is propagated in mass and social media, and they try to propagate domestic violence to a particular ethnic group, they try to particulate drug running to a particular ethnic group, they try to particulate street and gang violence to a particular ethnic group. You understand? It is all in the absence of empirical evidence and based on what I feel and what I see. And I keep remembering to tell you, the media is very good at focusing on what sells, as opposed to a wider, more contextually rich picture of what's happening. Because you can't, it's easier to pick something that's easy to sell and propagate, as opposed to look at the wider picture, which is much more complex and a little more difficult to explain the phenomenon.
And I agree with that. And I think when people, you can look at the gender research, sex research report. You could, well, I mentioned when Dr. Khatija Khan speak, pain is not truly, when you hear, and my pastor doctor talks about drug culture and the gang culture. Businessman, there's a lawyer, there's a thing. We could say, who are the lawyers and who are the business people? And then there's the gang. And he said, politician, for this to work. So what I understand is that just because I always say you have to focus on the pain and how you resolve the pain. I think Trinity made a point. We don't have enough social workers. You could talk to Professor Rhoda Reddock on that, about how she interlinks the whole economic order, neoliberal theory, and the IMF.
And that's what I was telling Mrs. R earlier on. It's a structural issue. It's not necessarily a behavioral issue or an ethnic issue. It's the way the society is set up for many decades.
Yeah, and dismantling the social work. And when they had social workers and dismantling it and moving it into NGOs and so communities lost social connectivity and social well-being through the social absence of social workers. We had social workers. Now we don't have as much, and they're not in the communities dealing with the families and dealing with the things and stuff like that. So we have lost, and we have to understand we have to reinvest in things. But to tell me that pain doesn't exist in other groups because you're not seeing it.
And the manifestation of the pain.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and the manifestation is this.
And many other groups that have the resources and connections to shut down the stories, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I say. They go to the 500, the 700. It has counselors and psychiatrists charging almost $1,000 an hour. And who could afford that? Check who can afford those. And they are well booked. You could talk to them. I think you all have interviewed some of them on your road. They have very well paid per hour. And who could afford that? Check who's that group. And they are booked. All right. Thanks.
All right, buddy.
You see,
Thank
people sadly channel and tunnel everything into this little space that we're on, this little dot on the face of this earth that we're on. They don't look at what's happening across the world. So as far as they're concerned, everything is Africans and East Indians for them. You understand? Just take an example out of America. And we talk about that just the other day. When a Muslim boy or a black boy kill anybody, he's a terrorist.
An instant terrorist.
Instantly, he's a terrorist. A little
When
white
a,
boy does
when
it,
a
he's
Caucasian
troubled.
boy does
He had
it,
a troubled upbringing.
troubled upbringing. He
Yeah.
was bullied at school, and all of which could be true, but they automatically look at the genesis of the problem with a white person
Yeah.
and the
yeah. And
manifestation.
what caused him to do that?
Yeah.
And what caused him to do that?
Watch me.
You
Don't
understand?
don't even talk about the Fox covering it.
Oh,
A
jeez.
different story. We have another call, gentlemen.
I
Good
don't
morning.
like these discussions. I'm tired. Especially when people
Well,
have just this myopic view of
Good morning.
Trinidad and Tobago along race lines.
Good
It's tired.
morning. Hi, good morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi. Mr. Richards.
Yes, yes, sir.
To your I was in your conversation just now with Mrs. R. And when she said that they highlight, you jumped on that bandwagon quickly and said, they highlight. Now, let me say something. What I think you're inferring is that that's what they want to show. So then you are saying that there's a national conspiracy in Trinidad by social media, which is everybody, electronic media, and print media to only highlight one ethnic group. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a particular type of picture that sells more.
Also, then social media is also trying to sell that particular type of picture. Is that what you're saying?
Well, social media shares whatever social media thinks will get likes.
All right. Well, I have to agree with Mrs. R strongly. That is more one type of ethnic group that is involved in these fights. And that goes again by what I see: social, electronic, and print. That's just, as I said again, as you said, it's good to be able to speak about these things. And that's just my thoughts. One question, another question.
Caller,
Yes,
you live in
right,
the United States, right?
Yeah.
What ethnic group do you think is responsible for a lot of these mass killings and so on?
White supremacists.
All right.
Thank you, caller.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All the best to you. Thanks for calling. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning. Interesting conversation this morning, right? I think that one thing we would describe is selective perception. And it's quite unfortunate that people associate race in terms of related to crime. Like if it is that there's some genetic behavior contributing to the person's genetics, right? With relevant to school violence, a lot of persons not looking at the association between these students' behaviors minus whatever problem they accumulate at home, whatever. But there's the influence of social media also in terms of likes. And if you look at most of the fights that are propagated, rather, if it's because of bullying or whatever the case may be, it is the associated persons around that seem to be sharing these things. So they act as individuals that propagate that kind of behavior itself too. And that is something that we need to address, right? Probably need to get the families and them involved. I saw there was a video once, it was on CNN or ABC News, in one of the schools where they were encountering a lot of these fights among the students and themselves. And they incorporate the family, the fathers that come in the school. And they actually act as a kind of counseling where the fathers and them exhibit that there's no conflict between themselves, and they tend to resolve these issues among the students themselves. And so it acts like a body system itself too, right? The next factor that we need to address, because we tend to shy away from it a lot of times, every time the issue of race is raised, we tend to treat it as a taboo. And this has been going on for years. And no one takes up the mantle to address the issue. Right? And that is causing a lot of the selective perception, which interferes in the communication between two groups, the major groups here. So the discussion needs to be elevated a little more. Right? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All
All right. Thank you, caller. 222-TALK, 612-TALK, toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099. All right?
I would recommend anyone listening read the late Professor Simon Ryan's book, Marginalized Youth, Youth at Risk, where he disaggregated the manifestation of antisocial behaviors, in some instances criminal activity, and disaggregated by geographical region and ethnicity in Trinidad and Tobago, and you get a clearer picture of what's happening.
A troubled youth is a troubled youth, regardless of where they come from or what they look like.
And then there's some social structures and there's some social structures, Wendell, in this country, from the time the country was birthed in 62 and probably before that, that lend themselves to some of the phenomena we're seeing.
Yeah.
It's not an ethnic thing, it's a societal structure thing. Okay, because you put any ethnicity under certain conditions and you get certain manifestations.
Yeah.
But people don't want to hear that because it's easy to say, well, it's just a black thing or East Indian thing or Syrian thing, because it's the easier default position to take.
Yeah.
It's more, in some instances, more comfortable.
Yeah, and whilst we may want to disagree with the Prime Minister involving himself in this narrative with the name calling, you know, I don't know if people understood forget the Prime Minister for the time being. Look at the story. Roots is probably the most. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Wendell.
Roots is probably the most looked at movie and in terms of that historical perspective of slavery and so on, right? And the issue was a slave, Kunta Kinte, who was enslaved, being asked to repeat a name that he did that wasn't his. The white man was instructing a black man, an ex-slave, to beat him. You understand? And every time he got whipped and they asked him his name, he said Kunta Kinte, until he bent, until he broke down and repeated the name Toby. You understand? Because that is the name the white man gave him. And that was cut.
All right, let's see this call.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is Jerry here.
Yeah, Jerry.
And my perspective on the school violence is a little different in that we haven't taken a look at these violence are happening between Form 1 to 3 children in most instances, not in Form 4 and 5 at all school level. And in Form 1s, in the beginning of the pandemic, would have had one term in school, and then they were locked down. The socialization skills that we saw, was a PTA member for years, and when a Form 1 child comes in school, from primary school, and where there was one teacher, one class, and they got involved with the group of different children, different teachers, going from class to class, their socialization skills fell very low. Their communication skills were poor. So what was happening at that time, because they were in school every day, they got the opportunity with the deans, the teachers, they got the most fight and disruption at the Form 1 level. These children, for the last 2 years, so the Form 3s included, did not get to socialize. They did not get to sit in a classroom with other students who don't like them, whose hairstyle different, whose skills shorter, who have a better shoe, who know how to articulate, who is push up to the teacher. So what they do now, they were online for the last 2 years, communicating and watching on the camera, who she feels she is, or who he feels he is, always being Mr. Right. You come in school now, face to face, no socialization skills, no communication skills, no interacting skills. What you gonna do? You're gonna lash out. And we keep watching the violence as just the child being bad. These children had no socialization skills for the last 2 years at the most critical age, 11 to 14, 11 to 13. When you build that interaction and you get your new peers, you find your identity as a person. So this is why I see the violence is so high. It always was there, yes. But the fact that now you take these children out of a pandemic, send them in an environment where they were not equipped for, without any guidance. I remember when school was about to open, I asked the principal, and the intention of the ministry was the school was asking that they do 2 weeks of interaction, social work, but the ministry was only on education. So they pushed no, let's get them into the book. It was supposed to be 2 weeks of counselors talking to them, interacting skills, communication skills, and we missed the opportunity, and we're going to see the repercussions for a very long time because we didn't understand that socialization at the age of from primary school to secondary school, that first year, is critical. It builds identity, right? So I don't know. That's my thing. And Wendell, on the issue of the Prime Minister, I'm really disappointed that he would even get it. To me, this is the same thing we talk about the children. We as adults doing it. We name calling in public and on platforms, and we have to respond. We have to respond and say, I right. Leave. If somebody talk nonsense to you, you're telling your child every day when they talk to you, walk away, ignore. But we getting on a platform, we getting on the media, the voices that have been heard in public and people look up to, and getting on like that. And they want to use justification. I cannot justify responding to people who talk nonsense by more nonsense.
Yeah.
And you know it's nonsense because you might be right. But when you come across and responding to it, it is nonsense then because nobody will hear your message. They would only hear you being responsive or arrogant or ignorant or illiterate. Stop responding as political people to these nonsense. Stop it.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that at all. You understand? I wouldn't argue with that at all. There's just some things you just leave alone. I am very protective of what I ingest in my space right now. Too much toxicity out there. Too much. Hey, Richie?
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey,
Hey, glad you could join us, Richard. Always. You
What
reach
did you do
school,
there?
time to go home.
I had a difficult navigation this morning.
Ah.
Well, I had a noisy car. I had I had several people in the car. It just made sense to turn off the mic because they could not control themselves talking.
Okay. Well, you're driving PH today?
Kind of, because of the rain, several people asked,
Yeah, I know. The gas price high too, eh?
to commute.
Gas price is high too, eh? So don't let them just sit down for free, you know.
All right, let's get into our 8 o'clock news brief. It's all powered by Champlain Auto Services.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
A 15-year-old Form 2 student of the Williamsville Secondary School who was